All right.
Excellent.
What's your name?
My name is Will.
Hey, Will. Nice to meet you. I'm Jimbob.
Nice to meet you as well, Jimbob. I am very excited. I love talking about evolution.
Awesome. Well, let's start with defining what's meant by evolution when you say evolution.
It is the change in allele frequencies within a population over time.
And is that an observation?
Yes, there are many examples of allele frequencies changing within populations.
Okay, so then if a scientific theory is more than the observation, how is the theory of evolution, as you would say, distinct from the observation of changing alleles?
Let me ask you some questions. Do you know how DNA works?
How it works? Not exactly, but no.
All right, well, are you familiar with the term central dogma of genetics?
No.
Well, basically, you know what DNA is, right? It's the genetic code, as one would say, which exists in every cell of a living organism, which is the instructions on how to make that organism.
Right, but do you need an organism first, or?
No, DNA and RNA, they can replicate themselves. In fact, viruses are non-living because they don't meet the criteria for being called living because they don't have cells. Yet they also experience evolution because of their genetic material.
Okay, but the thing is, if we can't agree on what evolution is, there's no point in diving in. So that's why if changes in allele frequency is merely a local observation we have of organisms, micro, macro, then I'm trying to understand what the evolutionary theory is if it's distinct from the observation of changes in allele frequency.
Well, they are related. You see, DNA, to get back to the explanation of how DNA works. So you have DNA, which is the long-term storage of genetic material. In order to convert DNA into proteins, which is what DNA codes for, DNA must first be transcribed into RNA, which is a different form of genetic information, which is then translated into proteins.
Okay.
And since DNA codes for proteins, a change in DNA would thus change the protein, which would thus change the structure. But that doesn't always happen. I have a lot of notes in depth to explain genetics.
Okay, so how do you get from observation of changes in allele frequency locally to the idea, let's say, that an organism or a population of organisms that doesn't yet have a liver produces a liver from genetic mutation?
Well, I heard the liver argument yesterday. So what this is I wouldn't want to say bad faith because that's a leftist term. In no way, I would like to make that clear. In no way am I some lefty atheist here. I just know a lot about the subject. But in order for a liver to evolve, it first would need, well, that's the function of a liver. It's to filter blood. In order to have a liver, you first need a circulatory system, so that would be a prerequisite. But I'm guessing you're going to ask me, how does an organism evolve a circulatory system?
Well, it's a fair question. If all the mechanisms that do stuff are a product of evolution, including a liver or a circulatory system or this or that or a heart or a brain, if it's true, if the claim is that this random mutation process actually creates a pathway to developing a higher functioning, hyper-specific functioning thing like a liver or a circulatory system, then it would follow that the process that you're appealing to actually did produce it, right? So this is what I find kind of interesting about the evolution arguments is that it never fails. You either grant yourself a population without explaining how you got a population, or you grant yourself at the more micro level or moderately micro level. You say, well, I need a proto liver. I need a proto something. Please give me something to work with. But the problem is the thing that you're granting yourself, and you definitely telegraphed it well, is that you keep granting yourself the starting thing. But evolution actually has to produce the starting thing.
I forgot who exactly did this, but there was a study, if you want to fact check this, some scientist, dang, forgot what his name was. but he recreated the conditions of what the early Earth would have been like before life, with all of the chemicals that are predicted to have been there,
How
and he
did he do
shocked
that?
it.
Wait. How
Oh,
did he know the? How did he know the conditions?
I'm not sure, but he
That's okay.
shocked it. He
Okay.
shocked it. Well, I wasn't prepared to bring this part up. I have a bunch of other stuff prepared, but he shocked it. He's like, if you do some chemistry, it will create the uh, building blocks of life, the amino acids and stuff. But there is the question, how do those come together? And I'm not saying that I know or anybody knows where the origin of non-living things became living things.
Well, we're not talking about that. I'm actually granting you at least something, right? If you grant yourself first replicators, I don't. We don't.
Hmm.
We're not getting to abiogenesis. It might be. It might be related, parallel related, but it's actually inconsequential right now because I'm actually granting you an entire population of an organism that's hyperfunctional, can reproduce already. I'll even give you reproduction itself.
Hmm.
So a population, it just doesn't have anything, any semblance of a liver at all. There's nothing there that says a liver. And so what I'm asking you is, how does random mutation in the process you call evolution, changes in allele frequency, produce a liver from not a liver inside a population? How does how does that occur mechanically?
Well, if there is a mutation in DNA, it will cause a change in the shape and function of a protein. So I know you said you don't accept the term proto-liver, but that is how it would have come about. Is you have a small mutation which causes tissue, the
Uh-huh.
proteins in the tissue, to have a different function, which then would either benefit the organism, not benefit it. It has no benefit or downside, or it would kill it. And
Well, it sounds like your answer was it happened. But I'm asking how. So you said a random mutation occurs, which there's
you're
several
asking
types.
how a mutation happens?
Well, no. There's three kinds of mutations, right? Just generally
Hmm.
speaking. Yeah. Three types. Hello. Are you?
There's point mutations, there's reversals, and there are duplications or deletions.
Okay. So if the more rare one you're talking about produces what you call a beneficial alteration, the beginning of a process that then leads to some beneficial mechanism, it's not yet there in the mutation, right? It's not present. That's just the start, you're saying, is the start. But what I asked you is mechanically, the mechanism itself, you're saying a random mutation happened in the past in a population that didn't have a liver, and it set off a cascading event that eventually produced the liver. That's just restating it happened. I'm asking you, how does a random mutation produce a liver? You said it does.
I said yes, the proteins which are coded for in the DNA, which was mutated, has a change in function, which is, you know what cancer is, right? You know what
Yeah,
a
but
tumor is?
yeah.
So, cancer is an observable mutation in the somatic cells of an organism, and in this case, it is a mutation which is deadly, which not all mutations are beneficial,
Uh-huh.
but the appearance of a liver would be similar to the appearance of a tumor, which is what happens in tumors is there's a mutation in the DNA
Uh-huh.
that it turns off the cell's signal to do apoptosis, which is the cell essentially killing itself because something in the cell realizes that there's something wrong with it, so it
Uh,
would kill itself. But
okay,
this
why hold on.
mutation
Hold on a second. There's a
causes,
lot there. Hold
yeah.
on a second. Hold on a second.
Mhm.
You're making the analogy to cancer, which has
Mhm.
somewhat varying and unpredictable levels of mass that it becomes from the multiplication of the cells, right? But if you're saying a liver is produced similar to the way cancer is produced, um, what is it that you're pointing to that can generate the universal size of the liver in perpetuity in a population, because cancer happens inside the lifeline of one individual, right? That happens, and you look at it and you go, oh wow, that grew really fast. If you're saying the liver grew, you're actually expanding the timeline in which a liver grows, like cancer, because cancer's turbo. You're saying a liver is slow-mo, right? And so you're saying that the liver from not liver grew out like cancer, metastasizes, and eventually in the population, even though we know cancer grows in the individual, not the population level, like we don't get a random, suddenly everybody in the population has cancer if there's not a known cause. It doesn't happen just genetically, suddenly everyone has cancer.
Well,
You
I
have
was
to say,
using the cancer analogy just to provide an example of mutations occurring in cells, which gives them a different function.
Yeah,
Now,
but that doesn't give you specialized function, though. Like the liver has a very specialized function, and you have to say that, like cancer, it starts from a globular thing that doesn't do anything at first, and then eventually hyper specializes its function, not only in an individual body, it does a little bit, and then the next generation, the sun has a globular thing, right? Well, the thing is, like, cancer grows as a mass in a body, but it doesn't follow that the offspring has the same mass and function of that cancer in their body. So you're actually insinuating that it's like cancer, but it's actually nothing like cancer, because what we know of cancer is that it's isolated inside the body we already have, that has a lot of organs in it already.
Again, I just gave the cancer example as an example of how DNA mutation can cause a tissue to acquire a different function. And I already said before that there are 3 types of mutations, which are ones that will do nothing, provide no benefit or advantage or disadvantage, one that would be deadly to an organism, and ones that do provide a benefit. So
yeah. We're talking about the beneficial ones, right? The cancer one is usually not
an example of not a beneficial.
Yeah. So the thing is, when we talk about hyper specialized function, the cancer blob itself doesn't add any benefit. Yeah. Hold on, my wife's walked out.
All right.
Can anyone hear me?
All right, sorry about that. So I would ask you, would you agree that cancer itself is has no direction or teleology?
Well, cancer itself is not a heritable thing, which is what I'm going to get to. The only way that you can inherit a mutation is with.
Hold on, you didn't ask. Hold on, you're not listening to my question.
Yeah.
Cancer itself, when it grows, it has no direction toward any function when it grows.
Yes, which is why it is an example of a mutation that is bad. See,
okay, hold on. No. You're saying they don't matter, but that doesn't mean they don't matter. Do you agree that the random mutation? Hold on. You're interrupting.
Picking apart my example.
I am picking you apart for sure.
That don't matter.
Hold on. You're just declaring. No. Hold on. You're declaring. No, you're declaring. Stop, dude. Stop it. Stop it. You're declaring it doesn't matter, so you don't have to answer.
Calm down.
No, you calm down. You're interrupting me when I'm trying to ask you a question. Okay. Look at.
I'm very angry.
Look. No. It is angering when you just go. What you're saying doesn't matter. Okay. It does matter.
You're also interrupting me. I didn't say anything about that.
Well, I stopped you and I said I want to clarify something, and you didn't answer my question about cancer. I didn't ask if it's inheritable. Dude, you're interrupting me again, man.
You interrupt my.
You just interrupted me. I asked you a question about the direction of cancer. I didn't ask if it's inheritable. I said when cancer grows, it's not growing toward a direction of functionality. And the answer is yes, that's correct. That's all you need to say.
We're going in circles here. I don't
No,
think
we're
you have
not.
the
We're not,
biological
dude.
or genetic knowledge to
No,
understand that.
now you're just grandstanding. Okay, so look, I'm asking you a really clean question here, and you're not able to answer a simple yes or no question. I thought you'd be able to do that. So
Well,
can you
what
answer
do mean
yes?
by- Yes,
Can you?
the cancer has no direction within
Okay.
the body because
Got
it is
you.
a mutation that is
Okay.
deadly.
Okay. Does the mutation that produces the beginning toward a functioning liver have a direction toward a functioning liver?
If it is a tissue, so in the hypothetical proto-liver, which you have no example of, and I don't have any example of, we can merely think about what this thing could be, which is why this is a bad example.
You didn't answer my question. When the random mutation happens that produces the beginning of a proto-liver and toward the hyper-functional liver that we know today that filters toxins, right, among other things in the body, did the random mutation that happened have a direction toward the hyper-specific functionality of the current liver?
Well, in the case of the liver, I would say yes, but then you would just say that, well, how do you know that? Because
No.
we have livers today, you know?
No,
It's
I wouldn't say
because
that.
in the proto-liver, in the proto-liver that we are discussing here, the only reason that we would know that a liver would have evolved under the theory of evolution is by acknowledging that every vertebrate has a liver today.
Yeah.
And then you'll
Okay.
say that's not a good point.
Well, no, that's not getting into how it is. What I'm getting into, I'm not talking about categorizing vertebrae and invertebrate and what's different about them. That's something we could observe. We're talking about a process that you're saying exists. That's why I asked if a random mutation that's actually truly random that creates some sort of mutation in a body. If that's what you're saying causes hyper specialized functionality years and years later, then I want to know how is it that a random mutation produces not only the first iteration toward a proto-liver, but consecutive random mutations toward hyper-specific function? How does that happen?
Well, here's the thing. If your mutation develops into a tissue which has some capacity to filter blood based on the proteins, and it seems like you're assuming that we're just talking about one mutation occurring which would cause this liver to happen. It's not just one
No,
thing.
I just said successive. I said if one random mutation is the beginning, is it not true that you need consistent other mutations to keep the facilitation of this building the liver over a long period of time going?
Well, so a liver is a blood filter, so would first have to have this tissue that evolves, which could filter blood based on the function of the protein, and judging on how modern day animals filter their blood without livers, because there are animals that have blood and do not have livers. They do it based on what's the word? Not osmosis, diffusion. They do it based on diffusion. So an animal that can eliminate waste from its body better than diffusion, which is now what this new tissue is able to do, would give that organism an advantage, allowing it to survive to be able to reproduce. Animals, the genes now being passed on to that next generation, give the offspring a advantage at survival.
Yeah,
and
you're
the
saying
ones that survive, ones that reproduce and survive, have
Story
the
time.
benefit of this thing.
I understand.
Mutations,
Oh my gosh,
successive
man.
mutations, which would improve the function of the liver, would just
Yeah.
they would stack upon each other successive generations.
Well, you're
until
telling a
you have
story.
what we have the liver.
You're telling a story, right? And I understand the story you believe is happening, but you're literally just saying the chapters of the story and what happened through the chapters. And I'm asking you the specifics of if we start with one random mutation that produces the beginning, right, of a proto-liver, the thing that filters, like cells that filter toxins, right, just generally speaking. You're saying the succession of random mutations eventually produces a hyper-specialized all-inclusive little mechanical device called the liver that we have today. I'm merely asking you a question. How is it that occurs? You're saying that it occurs again, that it occurs.
See, this is a bad example. This is why I call this example bad faith, because the only way to explain this example is by using the theory of evolution, which you already say is false. So this isn't getting us anywhere. So I'm going to take us back to DNA here. All right.
Wait a second. Hold on. Let me just clarify. Let me. So, okay, I know that you would want to get off the subject, but the reasoning, I just want to get your reasoning. So you're declaring that it's bad faith for me to ask about the positive claim that random mutation produces a hyper-specialized liver. That's bad faith because you said the only way that makes sense is if you accept that it's true?
Well, let me explain to you how we have evidence for
Talk about bad faith, man.
Right.
Total projection, man.
Anyway, all right, back to DNA.
No. Let's do the theory. Let's do the theory.
That's DNA. Okay?
Dude, I don't want to learn about DNA because I grant the action.
Because it would tell you how evolution actually works.
No. You would have to tell me how evolution works, which you failed. And now look, what I asked you at the beginning here
is there is no fossil evidence for how a liver evolved. So
did I ask you? No. That's not rational.
You literally did.
No. So
then why are you asking irrational questions?
I asked you at the beginning, is there a distinction between changes in allele frequency? Dude,
let me explain to you how evolution
I'm asking.
works.
No. Let me ask you first.
It is not directional.
I'm gonna mute you if you can't. I'm gonna mute you if you can't answer. If you just can't listen, okay? I asked you at the beginning because you brought up the theory of evolution versus just the description of allele changes, right? I asked you very point blank. First question to this.
I brought up DNA.
Dude, you're not listening still.
With the liver thing.
You're not listening. No. Is there a difference between the theory of evolution and the observation of changes in allele frequency?
No, they're the same thing.
Okay, so an observation can be a theory?
Theories are based on observations. All right, I'm
dude,
going to.
You're in a contradiction, bro.
Conversation now.
No. This is my show. I direct the conversation. Okay, you just contradicted. You just made a distinction that you denied. Okay, I just asked if there's any difference between the observation of changes in allele frequency and a theory of evolution. You said no, and then I said, oh, so any observation is a theory, and you said no, it's different than a theory. So which is it, buddy?
Theories are based on observation.
I know that.
You don't see a tree growing outside. You don't see a tree with green leaves, and you say,
"Yeah,
I am observing trees have green leaves. My theory is
right.
that trees have green leaves
I know
because
that.
they look good."
Thank you. You just eloquently laid out why it's ridiculous to say changes in.
You're not.
You keep interrupting.
Let me
you
give
keep interrupting, bro. You're
rude.
You're a rude person, man. Because I'm trying to get to.
Rude.
I know I'm rude, but I'm not. I'm trying to let you talk and then let me respond. But then when I respond, you talk over me. So I asked you a question. If there's a difference between the theory of evolution and a mere observation, which from my view, there has to be a difference between a theory and just an observation. A theory is based first on an observation, in fact, like you said. So if the observation is changes in allele frequency, can you tell me how you got to the theory?
Well, that's why I was explaining DNA, so that this would actually make sense to you.
Observation is changes in allele frequency. What's the next stage of the scientific method?
It's based off of multiple observations here, all right? All right, so let me explain to you how DNA works, all right? You have the 4 nucleotides of DNA. You have A, T, C, and G. The sequence of nucleotides is called a codon. Codons code for a specific amino acid and protein. We already talked about this. There is something in the genetic code called redundancy of the genetic code, where you have a sequence of 3 nucleotides, which is what codes for the codon. The 3 nucleotides make the codon, which codes for the amino acid. Redundancy in the genetic code means that multiple sequences of codons code for the same amino acid, and this can be explained as insurance for point mutations, which are the most common mutations that occur are point mutations. So, if a point mutation occurs in a codon, in order to render it non-functional, or in order to avoid it being rendered non-functional, there are several different sequences for an amino acid from a codon.
So how does this process produce not only individual things, like, because you said the process that facilitates the making of a liver or a brain or a heart is basically accidental. It's random. And now you're describing what DNA does. But the problem is, I can grant you everything that DNA does descriptively, because you could look in and watch it do things like that. But the difference between me and you is what you're describing doesn't in any way, shape, or form get you to from point A, an animal not having a heart, to point B, having a heart, by describing DNA. You don't get that, actually. I would like you to skip to the point where you say DNA does this, produces a random mutation, and then voila, a million years or however many years you need, it produces a functioning heart that does something specific. I still haven't heard how that happens.
You know what a dog is, right?
A dog?
You've heard of a dog?
Yeah, under your view,
EOG?
that's arbitrary. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many breeds of dogs there are? Why are there different breeds of dogs? Why are dogs so different from each other?
So dog is a universal species? I just want to make sure you're saying that.
The dog, in technical terms, is a subspecies of the wolf, the gray wolf, which is Canis lupus.
Is that objective or arbitrary? Under evolution, is that objective or arbitrary, that category?
That category of Canis lupus?
Yeah, is that arbitrary or objective?
Well, there are several species concepts, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is wolves, or dogs, are descended from wolves. Their scientific name is Canis lupus familiaris.
Is that arbitrary, that category you just said?
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, it doesn't matter if you're saying it doesn't matter if you're saying something arbitrarily is the case or objectively.
Why are there different kinds of dogs? Can you explain to me how dog breeding works? Do you understand how that works? How do you go from... Because dog breeding is something that's undeniably true. You have all of these different kinds of dogs because people selectively bred them and made them that way. Okay,
and how does that get you from a non-heart to a heart?
We're not talking about that.
I was asking you about a heart. How'd you get a dog from not a dog, though, right?
If I engage with these examples that you're giving, it's just bad faith garbage.
It's not bad faith, dude, because, look, you're bad faith because I asked you a question. Under the evolutionary view, you're appealing to categories.
You're not. This is a very complex,
I don't
science. I understand that your brain is not large enough to understand it.
Stop interrupting
me.
You're
interrupting me. If you're going to interrupt me, I'm going to interrupt you. All right?
I just asked you a question about the category.
We have already established.
Is it arbitrary or not?
DNA is heritable. It can change. You get dog breeds by selectively breeding dogs.
You start with dogs.
Get a Great Dane and a Chihuahua?
You have to have a dog first, right?
You start with a wolf.
Yeah,
where did the wolf come from?
Well, actually, under evolution, is it fair to ask that, from your view, isn't it fair to ask? Dude, you keep interrupting me, man.
You're interrupting me.
I let you stop, and I'm talking now. I didn't interrupt you, actually. You interrupted me and said, where did a wolf come from, before I even got any question out, right? You interrupted. So listen for a second, okay? I know you're in a tough spot here. So if evolution is true, the wolf itself, the beginning of the dogs, right? The beginning of the dogs is the wolf, the canine label, right, that you said. Isn't that the product of something that's not canine, though, from the evolutionary view?
We're not talking about that. We're talking about the specifics of how dog breeds work. You're derailing it to something that is not relevant to what my point is.
You got to start with something that's a category of a wolf, though.
Jimbob, can I engage with this dog breed argument real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I just want to learn a little bit. So you're saying that a Great Dane and a Chihuahua are the same species, Canis familiaris, I believe.
It's because they can interbreed with each other. That is what constitutes a species. That's one of
the species. Can they interbreed with Canis lupus, a wolf?
Yes, they can, actually. There are wolf dogs.
Okay, so you already then just messed up because you said because they can interbreed, they're the same species. So why is Canis lupus separate from Canis familiaris?
Because there are enough genetic differences and physical differences between them that we would consider them different categories.
Great. How much difference do you need? Because you also just mentioned a Great Dane and a Chihuahua. There's a big difference between those two.
They can still interbreed with each other. That they are still part of the same subspecies.
Okay, so back to the wolf. Why is the wolf then outside, but it can interbreed? There's too much difference between a wolf and, say, a husky, which is also canine is familiarist?
The wolf is the wild type of the populations
Oh,
of
so
wolves
that's
that we have
another
now
category,
are the
but
wild
that's
type.
everybody
Hold on,
wild
you're interrupting me.
versus
You're interrupting me.
domestic.
You're interrupting me. You're interrupting me.
Wild.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so the wolves are the wild type. Dogs
Like
are
Pokemon,
the
right?
domesticated. Oh shit, that's silly. Don't even say that.
Like what?
Dogs are the domesticated version of a wolf, which is why we give them the different name.
Ah, gotcha. Okay,
So
well then
the way that you can get
back to
different
Jimbob.
types of dogs. Look up what a pug looked like 100 years ago. Pugs
I
look
agree.
substantially different. But why
Yeah,
is that?
totally.
If DNA
Mhm.
is the heritable piece of genetic information that codes for the organism, how does it change over time? You've acknowledged that pugs and dog breeds have changed over time. That is evolution, which is what
it's never. But the thing is, it's never. What's posited under evolution though isn't. Is some point at which the thing itself, the category itself, produces something outside of ultimately the category, right? So if a wolf is the starting point that you're granting yourself for the changes you see with dogs, the variation of the kinds of dogs is still well within the category, right? So even if that's granted, it doesn't actually demonstrate what you ultimately have to hold is that, for instance, humans. Really simple answer to this question. From your view, did humans actually evolve downstream from something entirely not a human at some point?
Yes, we share a common ancestor with chimpanzees about 7 million years ago. There is fossil evidence of these.
It's a yes or no answer, dude.
Transitional fossils.
Yes or no answer.
It's not a yes or no. If you
is.
simplify it to a yes or no, then you're just being reductive. You're being very reductive.
Okay.
You're making things not make any sense.
So the answer is, so the long form answer you're giving me is yes, humans come from, are descendants of something that's entirely not human, right? Entirely not human, right?
What does that even mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean that something that came before us, like a slug or something, Luca, the first common ancestor, or anything before monkeys even, right? There has to be something that isn't even anatomically similar to a monkey or an ape. There has to be something in our past, from your view, that's anatomically different than us, such that we don't even call it the same thing entirely. Well, it's universally a different thing.
That's why I bring up the examples of dogs.
Dogs don't change.
The wolf has different hairs. Yes, they do. What are you talking about?
They're still in the same category, dude.
The genetic variation that you see within dogs, you acknowledge
they're still in the category.
Breeds, right?
You just affirmed my conclusion. Is within dogs? Is that a category? Within
dogs, there are golden retrievers, there are huskies,
within
there
dogs.
are Great Danes, there are other things.
Yeah.
These are
is there anything not a dog?
Is
there anything inside of the dog category that's not a dog?
Of course. Then it wouldn't be a dog. That's a human-made concept.
Great. So then, why is that true for humans? You just said humans come from not humans.
There is a ancestor of humans. We belong to the group called hominids. There's an ancestor of humans, which would be chimpanzee. Like everybody says, your view is a chimp gave birth to a human. That's not true.
No, I didn't say that.
That's basically what you're saying.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that at all, you liar. I didn't say that at all. You said that humans come from something that are human-like, and then if you keep going back, you get further.
Australopithecus afarensis.
You keep interrupting, dude.
Non-human.
Yeah. Great. So there's a moment of when something becomes human, right?
Anatomical modern humans appear. I think it was.
I didn't say when.
500,000 years ago.
So how do you know?
Yes, you did.
No. I'm not talking about when, right? I'm talking about what's the distinction that you know something became human?
You can look at the anatomy. And say,
no. That doesn't tell me. What about the anatomy that's similar to something previous that makes something a human and something not a human?
Skull size and shape, just the skeletal structure of you can look at a chimp skeleton and a human skeleton and know there's a difference between them.
Well, no. I didn't ask whether there's differences in anatomy and similarities. Like by that standard, someone who's born with a small head and a small body, you would say they're not human. So what makes them human?
That they have the DNA, which is classified as anatomically modern human, which codes for an anatomically modern human.
No. The question is, at what point did you determine that something was no longer its previous and it was now a new thing called a human? How did you determine that?
We can't determine that based on living species. That's a question that's unanswerable. We can only make approximations based on fossil evidence.
Okay, so the deliberation that has been done and the assumption that how many years ago humans arrived on the scene is based on something you don't even have a standard for saying what arrives on the scene definitionally. You don't even know what you're referring to that arises on the scene, admittedly.
Yes, because we wouldn't have fossil evidence for it if that's what you're even trying to say. I don't even know what you're trying to say here.
You don't even know the shit you're in. So if you're
nonsensical.
No, I'm not nonsensical. If you say how many millions of years ago or 200,000 years ago, is that still the narrative?
If you would actually let me explain how evolution actually works and
you haven't. You can't. You can't describe how it works.
You keep interrupting me.
You're describing DNA.
You don't know anything.
That's not an argument, man. You're getting cooked here.
DNA is part of evolution.
How?
I explained to you.
No. How does it produce? How does it produce new types?
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. So DNA can change. DNA can change.
Right.
Which, based on mutations, which I explained, DNA is the coding for an organism. DNA can change. Thus, the organism that inherits changed DNA is different.
Wow, that's top tier shit. That's top tier shit. So it has parents already? Didn't parents need to evolve?
Asexual reproduction is real. I explained to you. I said earlier, I'm not interested in explaining the Luca. I'm not interested in explaining. How do you
go from? Well, no, not the origin of life. I'm granting you life. How do you go from?
You imply that where is the parent?
How do you go from non-parents to parents using random mutation?
What does that even mean? That makes no sense.
Okay, asexual means you could reproduce internally. You don't need to outsource your sex, right? You just reproduce internally, right? Sex, the way we see it today with a man and a woman, a penis and a vagina.
You know the definition of sexual reproduction?
Just stop, dude. I understand sexual reproduction includes asexual, hermaphroditic, and two. I'm asking you a very clear question here. Please don't interrupt. There was a time where a penis and a vagina didn't occur among the mammals, right? So I'm asking you, how does a random mutation, anything descriptively with DNA, produce two sexes, a penis and a vagina? How does that happen?
Well, your concept, here's the thing. Sex existing at all implies that evolution is real, because if evolution was not real, if genetic variation did not exist, if genetic variation and heritability of genetics did not influence survivability at all, everything would be asexual. Men and women would not exist.
Yeah, I know. That's a killer to your argument, though. Why? Because no, listen to me. I let you talk. Let me respond, okay? So if evolution is true, then sex itself as an activity and a mechanism would have to be produced by evolution, right?
You know what sexual reproduction is?
Oh my gosh. Would you answer I don't care. However you refer to it, is it true that sexual reproduction would have to be a mechanism that was produced by evolution?
Yes, because
Great. So how do you how do you get
to microbiology? All right,
dude. How do you now you're gonna dodge? You're in shit right now. You're in shit right now.
Do you know how bacteria sexually reproduce? Bacteria have sex with each other. Do you know how that's possible?
How?
I've never watched it. Tell us.
Well, there is a circle, a little ring of DNA inside bacteria, which is not part of its genome. Bacteria can pick up DNA from the environment and integrate it into their own genomes. That is a form of sexual reproduction. Right. And bacteria have a structure called a pilus in which they can exchange genetic information with each other.
Did they evolve that? Okay, so So this is the thing. You're in the same spot no matter where you go, micro, macro. You just described something.
Because you just don't understand it.
No, stop. That's fallacious. Okay, I understand what you're saying. This is the problem: is you don't understand the question. Is this? You just described a bunch of mechanisms inside a bacteria that allowed it to do a thing. I asked you point blank: isn't it necessarily true that the process of evolution produced that very mechanism? You said yes.
See, your questions make no sense. Your questions are
Unbelievable.
all in bad faith because you already don't believe in the process
No,
of
no, no, no,
evolution.
no, no, no. Let me do it again. You just described
getting
something.
nowhere.
No, no, no. You just described sex in bacteria, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
The sex in bacteria, the mechanisms, the ring that you pointed to, under evolution, wasn't it the case that the bacteria you're pointing to once didn't have that ring?
What is even your point? You're not
Is it? Oh my gosh, dude! The bacteria that has the sexual ring you referred to as the mechanism, was there a time under the evolutionary view where that bacteria, that population, didn't actually have that? It had to evolve that.
I don't know how it would have evolved, but it did.
Oh, it just did, but you don't know how. Exactly my point. It just did.
Well, I already explained. Bacteria.
Ladies and gentlemen, the guy calls in. I'm going to explain evolution to you. How does it happen? It just did, and there we have it.
I don't know. I'm not a.
No shit, dude. No
evolution.
shit. Exactly. No shit.
A bacteria can pick up a plasmid from its environment. That is a type of sexual reproduction without actually having to engage with another individual.
That's right. Why would you need to then express two individuals then from one individual?
Because of genetic recombination, which genetic diversity is good within populations because it helps them deal with change, which helps the DNA be replicated further.
No, that's silly, because if you're going to say that there's a moment between sex happening internally to splitting off into a male and a female counterparts, right, that actually, the process for that to happen, first of all, is very risky, and it spends a lot of energy and resources and a lot of risk to the environment to go out and try to do that. You have to actually perfect that.
How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that that's risky?
How do I know that it's risky to outsource
an organism where that's risky?
Okay, yeah. Is it risk to fight? Is it a risk to an organism to fight for the female?
Yes, it is.
There you go. You need an example. Roasted body bag.
You're not even talking about
It's
you're
a risk.
About sexual selection.
Yeah.
Sexual selection is different from natural selection.
Hold on. I know that, but if you're saying there's a process where sex happens internally, it's all in-house, and it moves from in-house to out-house, external, it splits up into two things, right? The moment you have a penis and a vagina, you have sexual selection. You have competition.
That's not true at all. There are many organisms that have penises and vaginas that do not engage in sexual selection.
Okay, and the ones. Do
you know what sexual selection is? Can you explain to me what sexual selection means? Do you even know what that means?
Yeah. How is it relevant, though, to your claim?
Because if you don't understand the definition of the word and you're arguing
it's
definition
2 words.
Based on a definition that doesn't, you know what I mean. See, semantics, bullshit semantics like that. This is how you grift. You're a grifter, dude.
What's the grift? What do you mean?
You're bad faith, man.
What do you bad faith? You're the one who can't answer any questions I have.
Anyway, bottom line, you're a grifter, okay?
What is a grifter?
You just deflected. One second. You just deflected away from the main point that Jimbob was saying is like why would this organism that like has its own internal structure, like why would it ever develop to have two different sexual reproductions?
Because the exchange of genetic information and the recombination of genetic information is beneficial to an organism's survival because it helps it adapt.
How did it know before it tried it that diversity would help it? How did it know that?
It's a blind process. It does not know.
No, in terms of
a mutation, just guesses.
It's also not necessary because hold on. It's not necessary because for the the larger portion of its existence, it actually existed and survived just fine without it. So why are you introducing that it needed it?
I'm not saying it needed it. I'm saying that it randomly happened. It gave a benefit to the organism, which is why it persisted and kept going, because it was good for the organism, gave that organism a survival advantage.
Not immediately. Not immediately. Not immediately. Why are you
organisms that
Hold on.
Why are organisms that did not have that advantage died out? Thus, the one with that advantage reproduced and
That's not
spread
true.
that gene.
That's not true, actually. Why? Because there's a process.
Why is that not true?
I'll tell you. I'm telling you right now. If there's a process from in-house sexual reproduction to external sexual reproduction by splitting. You're saying that's an advantage. It's actually not an advantage until it's done, right? So you have a long period of time, right? It's not immediately. It's not like it splits and suddenly there's a penis and a vagina that's operating, right? So in fact, there's a long process in which the mechanism. Dude, you're not letting me finish.
You think that an organism said, "I need a penis" one day? You think an organism just said,
no,
"I want a penis"?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. It's actually the opposite.
What he's saying.
No, I'm actually.
An organism
dude,
does not need to know the benefit that a trait would occur to it.
Dude, I didn't say it did. I'm saying the process between going internal to external sex, right? That process, you don't have an immediate advantage to starting that process.
Well, here's the thing: you can track the different
total dodge.
Sexual development.
This fucking guy, dude, the worst faith person I've ever engaged with, actually.
You can track sexual development by looking at fishes, amphibians, reptiles.
They already have the developmental pathways, dude.
What do you mean by that?
You can track fish development because they already have it in them to develop these pathways. We're talking about developing an entirely new pathway altogether for the animal in the population. So, like, you just totally avoided my question. My statement is which is this: if you go from internal in-house sexual reproduction, you're actually doing quite fine without branching out to two-part sexual activity. So you're saying, well, we branched off to two-part sexual activity because it was an advantage. Well, no, it's not an advantage right away. In fact, you're spending resources and calories developing something that's actually not functioning yet. So you have to give time for the penis and the vagina to operate and grow to the 3 inches that you have to be able to have sex with the opposite sex, right? That doesn't happen from one genetic mutation. So what we're asking you is, no, it's actually not true that it's an advantage. In fact, it's a disadvantage for more of the time it's developing than it's an advantage.
Well, that's actually not true. There are many ways that you can reproduce. There are the cloacal kiss. Many birds do not have penises. Ducks are the only birds that have penises. The cloacal kiss is the exchange of sperm between male to female, where they just put their cloacas together. Ducks have penises. And have you ever seen a duck penis? This is an argument for evolution. Have you ever seen a duck penis?
You know what they look like?
Yeah, I've seen a duck penis. Is it true that a duck once didn't have a penis?
Here's the thing. The ancestors of birds had penises. Ducks are the ones
did those ancestors once not have a penis?
From fish and amphibian, yes.
Okay.
All the way back 300 million years ago.
So what you're arguing is that the process of growing a penis into its functioning length and operation includes not using the penis for a long period of time. We'll call it 1/8 of a nub you have to hold is growing, even though it's not providing any advantage to the organism, right?
Even if a penis is small, that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be functional.
No. Before it's a penis, dude, you don't just get a penis, right? Under evolution, the penis has to be developed over a long period of time, right?
Yes.
Great. So there's a long period of time in which a penis doesn't do anything, regardless of its size. It just doesn't do anything because it's not developed to do what it does. At some point, you think randomly that a penis developed functionally, but also parallel to a vagina.
Here's where I got you.
Hold on. You're not letting me finish. You're not letting me finish, man. So if a penis developed parallel to a vagina, they developed completely unrelated to each other, right?
Here's where I got you.
You're not going to fucking answer my question. You're the worst person ever.
The penis and the vagina developed, the penis developed as an adaptation for the vagina.
No. You just contradicted yourself. You just contradicted yourself. Just a while back,
I already said cloacal kiss. That's an example of organisms that do not have penises that have sex with each other.
You just contradicted yourself just before you said. I'll tell you how if you're interested. So
I'm not interested because it's going to be some bad garbage. But anyway, let me explain why I have a gotcha there.
No, I'm going to mute you.
I explained earlier.
No, you get muted for that one.
Genetic mutation.
No, you're muted. You're muted. I'm not listening to you. I'm going to tell the audience then if you're not going to listen. He just said things don't develop on purpose. Now he just said the penis developed for the vagina.